I'm getting weird little aches and pains that I shouldn't be having at this age. So then I was starting to think about longevity, started reading about it. I get obsessed with something, so I start reading studies. I start reading different things. So now I'm looking for a longevity sport. Well, I'm working at Mabry Bank at the time, and one of my coworkers, Teresa Colmenero, she had an extra bike. She had been in cycling for a long time, and she said, hey, I'm going for a spin with a buddy after work. Do you want to join us? Because I had joked around that I was looking for something. And I was like, yeah, I'll come try it. First ride was 9 miles at a 9 mile an hour pace. And I remember it was the hardest thing I had ever done.
Yeah.
And I loved it, though. I was like, are you guys riding tomorrow? And she was like, yeah, you can borrow this bike.
And this is you are maybe just wearing shorts and no clip-ins or
oh yeah,
like
no clips, just my running shoes, shorts, and a t-shirt.
Welcome to the Willpower Podcast, where we uncover the secrets of success and share the wisdom of exceptional individuals. I'm your host, William Gomez, and as a real estate professional, I bring you insights from the world of real estate and beyond. Join me as I engage in captivating conversations with incredible guests from diverse backgrounds and industries, from top real estate moguls to trailblazing entrepreneurs and influencers. We dive into the mindsets and habits of successful people. If you love what you hear, don't forget to rate and review. Get ready to be inspired, motivated, and enlightened. Live life today on Willpower. Elias Zamora. How do you pronounce your name in Venezuela?
Elias
Zamora.
Yeah.
Is it Guerrero Zamora?
No.
Zamora. What's your full entire name?
Elias Miguel Enrique Zamora Salazar.
Dang, bro. I thought I had a long name.
Yeah.
So my full name is Williams Ivan Julio Gomez.
Beautiful.
And my mom tried to give me like an American name. I was born in Mexico.
Yeah.
And whenever she gave the people my name at the hospital, they just butchered it. My legal name is spelled with one L and an S at the end.
Dude. Williams.
Yes.
There you go.
But dude, it's glad to know that my driver's license is not the only one that has an extra inch on the width. But dude, thank you for coming on, dude. I'm super, super excited to have you on. For one, you're a stud cyclist, which I want to get into your story and kind of learn a little bit more about you. That's pretty much the reason of the podcast is for me to just have somebody on and just, what can I learn from them? And there's a lot that I can learn from you. Yeah. And then two, dude, you're just a super, one of the nicest people I've met. And I think that we are at that stage in our friendship where I'm like, okay, I think this dude is the real deal. Cause you know how you meet some people and you're like, this person's just too nice. Yeah. But for somebody that hasn't heard your name before, which you might have to repeat it cause they had to take notes on that. Give us a little introduction.
That's okay. Elias, I am 27 years old. I have an extreme passion for just pretty much making everybody that I meet feel welcome, joyful, and heard. Because there are a couple things that growing up, sometimes I didn't feel. I had a lot of issues finding myself in a way because I always had this identity crisis because I was always, so I grew up in Florida. We moved from Venezuela when I was 5, and then I grew up in Florida for a bit, and then we moved to Oklahoma. But I was always trying to, one could say, whitewash myself in a way, if that's the verbiage we want to use. So I strayed from my culture. I strayed from. I always had friends that were blonde-haired, blue-eyed. I was always trying to skate. I was always trying to do all the board sports and do all the things. And I loved that. I loved the beach growing up. I loved doing the things that I did athletically. But I noticed within my friendships, I was always trying to be like others around me. And a lot of those people were white. And so now I have almost taking a 180. And as I've gotten to know myself so deeply and truly, I try to make everybody feel welcome for who they are in front of me, and I try to read past that surface level. And And it doesn't matter if they want to give it to me or not. I just want to let them know, hey, man, you're heard, you're seen, you know, and you're loved. And so that's what I try to give out. That's my passion. And then, of course, I have two other passions. And it is an obsession with becoming the best version that I can of myself. That's inside and out. And so I'm consistently pushing my limits in all sports that I've done. I've consistently pushing my limits. I'm always trying to develop myself in any way that I can. I'm always trying to see where my flaws are and which ones I can highlight and actually change, and which ones are going to take a lot of deep work to change years down the line, and which ones I have to be on top of, because you can't just change something within yourself and then it just stick forever and you never have to work on it again. That's not how we're wired. That's not how we work. And so I am consistently trying to be as transparent with those around me and with myself on where I'm falling a little bit short and where I'm excelling. And my third passion is cooking. I love to cook, especially for, so I fell in love with it when I used to compete in bodybuilding. I got obsessed with making sure that I wasn't eating boring food. And so through that, got a lot of experimentation. Then I went vegan for a couple years, and that allowed me to really get deep into the ingredients and cooking styles and things. And now I just try to cook the tastiest food, but that can also be as nutritionally beneficial for me and those around me as possible. So,
dude, I can confidently say that in over 60 episodes that we've had, that's probably one of the best introductions I've ever heard. I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. We might as well just stop recording it there. But man, so it's funny that you say that you are the way that you are because of you try to whitewash yourself whenever you came over here. And this is something that I've shared with you one time whenever we were on a bike ride when we were getting a Coke, and I learned that you were born in Venezuela, and I was like, dude, I was born in Mexico. I moved here whenever I was 8 and a half, and dude, have the same exact experience. I moved here. I grew up in Sand Springs, which is like, I was the only Hispanic kid out of, I believe there was two other Hispanic kids in the entire elementary. I started here in 4th grade, and I remember doing things to try to just fit in, right? I think that we do that as kids just because that's kind of like, at that point, you really realize, hey, I'm in front of other people other than my family. But now I'm a bunch of other people that are my age, and I have to like make sure that I don't embarrass myself, or that I fit in, that I'm not the weird person, all this stuff. So a couple of the things that I remember doing is I remember seeing a lot of the popular kids, they had braces, and I wanted to get braces. I was just like, Mom, I need to get braces. And she's like, I don't think you need them. So I went to the dentist, and I was like pretty much begging them to give me braces, and they were like, your teeth are fine. Like to this day, I still haven't had any braces. And
beautiful teeth, by the way.
Thank you, bro. Besides the fact of when I started in the mortgage industry, I went to get my teeth cleaned for the first time since I had been in the business. It had been like 6 months. Yeah. And they say, have you been under a lot of stress? And I said, not that I can think of. Why? And they said, well, you're grinding your teeth a lot. And I just go, okay. They're like, what has changed? And I was like, well, I started a new position. And then ever since, bro, I have to wear a night guard. I have to wear a day guard for the first half of the day in order to keep the teeth that I have.
Yeah.
And so other than that, the thing that I was able to, that came back and bit me later down the road, was a lot of the people had glasses. And I remember I was like, Mom, I can't see. And I faked it that I couldn't see. I faked the test. They gave me glasses so I could wear glasses. And then in 9th grade, I realized they weren't cool anymore. So I'm like trying to ditch them. And then I couldn't really see.
Oh, no.
So, dude, I completely get what you're saying. And not only do you, like, would that happen like in Venezuela or in Mexico, that we would have been exposed to the same thing, like growing up and in school and everything. But the thing is that the culture is completely different. I don't know about you, but for me, like everything was completely different. The food tasted different. I didn't know a lick of English when I moved here. I remember thinking that black people spoke a different language because I didn't understand English. Like everything was so different. So tell me, what are like some of the struggles besides the identity crisis that you had moving here so young?
Yeah, so I'd say the most intense struggle that I can remember so clearly was it felt like as soon as I don't remember learning English. I just remember knowing it, but I know when we moved here, I didn't know a lick of English, except Linkin Park music videos that my cousin had shown me. And so, I don't remember learning English necessarily or having trouble with that, but what I do remember was always being the translator for my mom. That was the thing I had the most difficulty with, because I was needing to translate different legal things, different health things, and I was like, oh my gosh,
what age?
I don't know. This was like 6 or 7.
That's crazy. I had to do the same thing, but I mean, I was already like 9 or 10 at this point, which it seems like an adult compared to like a 6-year-old.
Dude, and it was like the weirdest thing, because I'm like, I don't know what any of this, I don't know what they're saying, like, and so I would never know how to translate it in Spanish. So then one of the most difficult things was then trying to almost wanting to get away from speaking Spanish.
Yeah.
And so that was weird, because I would tell my mom to not expect me to respond in Spanish, that I was going to start responding in English. And, she was like, that's why, you want to have 2 languages. But I'd say the translation thing was probably the hardest thing. Just, it felt like a lot of pressure. It felt like just there was a lot at stake, when in reality it wasn't that big of a deal. If you look back, like, you're always going to find the answer. But that was probably the hardest thing. And then other than that, the food, all these different little things, I honestly I just naturally I've always been naturally curious, and so I welcomed all these different little things without question. I will say, like, my mom, I'm very grateful my mom, so anytime the food wasn't that big of an issue, because at home, my mom tried to keep it as authentic as possible. So the food that we ate. So I was the one introducing her to new food. Yeah. So I'd be like, oh, at so-and-so's house, I tried pancakes. Like, they're like, so for us, for an example, we have cachapas, which are literally corn pancakes in a way. And so I was like, they're like cachapas, but they're made with flour. And she was like, what the heck? And so there's this box. And then I went through maybe like 2 weeks or 3 weeks where I wanted, the first time I tried pancakes, this was after the first time I tried pancakes, I wanted pancakes for breakfast, lunch, dinner. And it was like a 3-week thing, and she finally got fed up. And now I am obsessed with cachapas. I try to eat them any chance that I can. But little things like that is something I'm grateful for, that my mom kept it as authentic as possible so that I wouldn't lose that culture, even though I tried to.
Yeah, and I think that one of the similarities that you and I have, besides like our upbringing, even though it's 2 different countries, is that I feel that you and I have kind of like an addictive personality. To where I remember when I moved here, I had the same thing. I had always seen McDonald's commercials in Mexico, but there was no McDonald's where I lived. And I remember whenever we were in Mexico City, as we were coming here, I saw a McDonald's, but we didn't get to try it. Yeah. And dude, so when I moved here for the first 3 weeks, like I ate McDonald's like every day, and I was just like, this is all I want. But then that translates to other things, to where one of the biggest reasons why I want to have you on here is because to kind of learn about your journey of how you got into cycling, and then how you got so good at it so quickly. Because I'll kind of get into a little bit of how I got into it, and the comments that people have given me of like, man, you were like destined to cycle but I don't even feel like I compare to you. So I'm just like, dude, I think that has to do with you try something and you're like, this could go somewhere. I'm obsessed with it.
Exactly.
Like, dude, you're cycling 400 miles a week. Is that what your girlfriend told me?
Yeah. So
400 miles a week, bro.
Yeah. So in the past 5 weeks, I've cycled, I think it was 2,400 miles in the past 5 weeks. And
let's do comparison. Like that is it 2,400 miles from here, 2,500 miles from here to where? Like New York?
Something like that, yeah, or Portland, if you will, or so, yeah. I don't know exactly how long it is from here, but I know that it's quite a bit, and
dang.
It's just this is the most I have in the off season, but I can go ahead and deep dive into my journey, if you will, if you want me to.
I want to learn that, and before you get into that, I want to remind people that are listening right now. First of all, if people are watching and not just listening, this is the most comfortable that I felt with my tan lines on here. That people are like, what is that? And I'm like, gosh, I don't want to get into it.
Exactly.
So I've only been cycling a little bit of a year, and last year was the first time I started getting them. And then I was like doing everything to not get them. And then people in cycling world, they're like, this is like your proof that you're like one of us. And I'm like, But so you cycled 2,500 miles in the last 5 weeks, but do you do this full time?
I don't.
You don't. You have a full-time job. Tell us just a tiny bit about that, because that's people's number one excuse whenever they're like, well, sure, I would be a bodybuilder. I would be in CrossFit. I would do marathons, but I have a full-time job.
Yeah.
So tell us what you do, and then I want to get into your journey into cycling.
Yeah, so I want to start with whatever comes with this obsession that I have, this addictive personality. I set a goal in mind, and I need to achieve it no matter what's in front of me. But I'm not going to make it my life, which means I have a life that I need to continue living. And this needs to fit into that life that is already living, which means I can't just find the time. I have to create the time. So that is the thing with cycling, with bodybuilding, with everything. I have always created the time. So I learned really well time management in college, because I was always working full time. So work has always been a thing for me. So I was also a trainer, competitive bodybuilder, and then I became a competitive powerlifter. And anyway, I always found the time. So if I didn't have time after work, I'm going at 4 a.m. I did 4:30 a.m. wake ups to hit the gym from 5 to 6:30 to have enough time to come back, have breakfast, shower, go to work, then train people after or go to class. I did that for 2.5 years, 3 years. And so it just becomes this thing that like you have to make the time. So what I do, I have thankfully slowly I'm curating my life to fit my passions. And I am a Project Cost Analyst at American Power Electric, and which is a lot of financial forecasting, a lot of budgeting, for, I handle right now about $480 million in projects and money that I have to keep track of. And thankfully, I'm very grateful for this. I work 2 days in the office and 3 days at home. So there's a little bit of flexibility there, but whether there is or not, I make flexibility by, if I have to wake up early and work early to get off early, I'll do it. I'll work at 5 a.m. to, 3. I don't care. I really do not care what it takes. I will fit in my rides if I can, when I can, in any way I can.
Have you ever heard that saying, like, if you have to want to win as bad as you want to breathe?
Yeah.
That quote sounds kind of like cheesy.
Yeah.
But if you think about it, breathing is something that we don't have to make time for. Exactly. We have to do it, or else we're not here anymore.
Yeah.
And such are other things like taking a shower, brushing your teeth, eating, I can name thousands of things that we do daily that even if we don't have time, we still do them. Yeah. But people just take that for granted. They don't think like I can make time to do this thing that I'm trying to achieve, right? So you started doing bodybuilding. When did you start doing that? And then how did you transition into cycling?
So bodybuilding was something I actually started in I started lifting weights back in middle school, like 8th grade. And then I got very obsessed with the ability to kind of see this vision and create it with hard work. And so that's what I found myself doing in the gym. And then I really wanted to bodybuild. And so I worked out through my high school, got even more serious. And then my freshman year of college is when I finally started competing. And, that was an incredible experience. And I lifted weights very seriously for, almost 6 years before I got into bodybuilding. Did that for about 3 years, and then I jumped into powerlifting. So that was a lot of fun because it was just pushing, again, the obsession with pushing the limits, pushing myself. And it was something that but then powerlifting showed me something. Bodybuilding showed it first, and then powerlifting showed it even more, which is the obsession with self. And so then it became a little too focused on vanity, and that's why I moved over to powerlifting. But then I'm still obsessed with myself because I'm obsessed with the weight that I can push. It's all solo things. It's all things for me. And yeah, I have somebody that I train with, and yeah, I have people that I personally trained on the side, and all these things, a community you're building for sure. But at the end of the day, I have to focus on the weight that I'm pushing, and that's the only thing. And how do I get there to push that weight? So then another thing was I was like, man, I am losing a lot of my athleticism. And I grew up playing all sorts of sports, and I loved being athletic.
What sports did you play in high school?
In high school, I was track and field, and was my main sport. Did some basketball, did some football, and then my senior year, so this is another thing, if I'm obsessed with something, I make sure to get it. So in track, we kept coming up short. I was on varsity since 8th grade, and so we kept coming up short in the state, at the state championship. And then I didn't get picked for the squad that ended up getting second, so the closest we got, I didn't even get picked for that squad.
Is it like a relay or what?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
Gotcha.
And we also had some record setter, like 100 meter. So I was a sprinter, but I was a really good relay sprinter and long jumper. That's because I could contribute, but I wasn't the main guy. And so then, anyway, we're in powerlifting, and I'm starting to lose my athleticism. I'm 168 pounds on a 5 foot 5 inch frame at like 8% body fat. Like, I am stacked as can be. My neck is huge. I'm the strongest I've ever been. I'm, squatting 405, 415, and I'm deadlifting 515. And I'm just like, wow, all these goals, here they are, but I'm losing my athleticism, and I'm getting weird little aches and pains that I shouldn't be having at this age. So then I was starting to think about longevity, started reading about it. I get obsessed with something, so I start reading studies. I start reading different things. So now I'm looking for a longevity sport. Well, I'm working at Mabry Bank at the time, and one of my coworkers, Teresa Colmenero, she had an extra bike. She had been in cycling for a long time, and she said, hey, I'm going for a spin with a buddy after work. Do you want to join us? Because I had joked around that I was looking for something. And I was like, yeah, I'll come try it. First ride was 9 miles at a 9 mile an hour pace. And I remember it was the hardest thing I had ever done.
Yeah.
And I loved it, though. I was like, are you guys riding tomorrow? And she was like, yeah, you can borrow this bike. Like,
and this is you are maybe just wearing shorts and no clip-ins or
oh yeah,
like
no clips, just my running shoes, shorts, and a t-shirt.
So I had a similar story like that. But go back to you were to finish off. You were saying this is how obsessed I get. So what happened whenever you didn't make the team in high school to the?
So I had a lot of friends that were on the cheer team, and they were winning state championships all the time, like crushing it. These nice big state championship gold rings. And my buddy Drake, really, really cool guy. Shout out Drake DeWitt. And he was like, dude, I've now won state championship for the past 3 years. I'm leaving next year. So, like, there's a spot that's going to be filled. You're strong. You know, you're athletic. Just try it out. It's fun. I'm telling you. I went, tried it out. He was like, but if you want a ring, like, this is the place to do it. You're going to be able to do it here.
In cheerleading?
And so I went and I became a cheerleader. Yeah, and I got my ring.
Dude.
Yeah.
I'm glad we went back to it. I thought you were going to say, like, I was out there running every single day and night. And
I went to cheerleading, like, learned tumbling, learned all these different skills that were needed, went completely out of my zone. And I will tell you, legitimately, cheerleading is one of the hardest sports I've ever done.
Oh yeah, I've had Jordan on. He's actually my right hand guy, but I've known him since we were in 9th grade. And actually, it's funny that I said I had him on, and I as soon as we get off, we're like, we didn't talk about that you were a cheerleader, because he became a cheerleader in our senior year, and people gave him a hard time about it and everything. But yeah, it's that's pretty obsessed. Like, I want a ring. I want a ring.
Exactly. Like, I want to win a state championship. I don't want to leave high school without it. And that was my senior year.
So, wrapping up your bodybuilding career, you were 168 pounds. How tall?
5'5".
5'5", 168 pounds. You were squatting 415.
Yeah.
You were deadlifting 515.
Yeah.
What was like bench, power snatch stuff? Like, give me some other.
I never did power snatch or anything like that. Bench was 265. Bench wasn't my strongest. Yeah.
Is that pretty much the big numbers?
When you're doing powerlifting, you only do those 3 in competition. Yeah. And I got second at my first state meet.
Yeah.
And so
dude, I'm telling you, I feel like I'm looking at myself in the mirror with a little bit longer hair.
Yeah.
And I grew up in Tulsa pretty much. Never been to I literally told your girlfriend this as we were riding last Saturday.
Yeah.
Because she was telling me kind of her story. And I go to Tulsa Tough 2021 for the first time ever. I'd never been, and I'm like, dude, this looks awesome.
Yeah.
And this is after, like, I'm all in on CrossFit, because that was my thing. Like, I'm all in on CrossFit. Yeah. And I started that in 2019, went all in, like, and I said, so are all these people professionals? And they're like, no, like, anybody can do it. You just have to be a cat 5, cat 4. I didn't really know what, like, cat category meant literally until just about a month ago. Yeah. And I kind of started getting more curious.
Yeah.
And they're like, they have longer races too.
Yeah.
I was like, what's the longest race that they have? And they're like, they have 103 mile race.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
And they're like, you're crazy. 2022 rolls around. I'm having brunch at Red Rock Canyon Grill. And somebody says, Tulsa Tough. And I said, I'm supposed to do a race this year. I don't even have a bike, bro. And I go, I got to do this race. I said I would do it. Sign up for the race.
Beautiful.
And then I go, bike shop. Boom. Fat Tire. Right there. Same parking lot. Destin. I go thinking I'm going to spend $300, $500 on a bike. Bro, I got the most basic bike. It was $1,500. Yeah. They're trying to sell me on all this other stuff, like a butt pad, clips. And I'm like, nah. I'm in sales. You're trying to sell me.
Yeah.
I guess I'll get the helmet because I have to.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of pumped. I'm like, okay, get on the bike, go do 20 miles. Takes me like an hour and a half. Yeah. And I like hate my life.
Yeah.
My butt hurts so bad. And I was like, how in the world am I going to do 100 miles? And then from there, I just put the bike away, kept doing CrossFit. Yeah. So I had the opposite of you. You were like, are you guys riding tomorrow? Yeah. I'm like, dude, I don't want to do this anymore, but I'm already too deep in.
Exactly.
So you go and ride the next day, or tell me your story after that. Like how I want to kind of compare our paths. So tell me.
Yeah.
And this is when? This is what year, what month?
So that's what's funny about this is the next day, the thing comes out where like gyms are closed. So I'm like, oh, I gotta ride now. I gotta get a workout in, you know, like no matter what. So then after that, we're riding day after day. Every day. And it's not much. It's just a trail, but I'm loving it. You know, it's so fun. All these things, meeting new people. It's great. James Gann then lets me borrow a bike that fits me a little better. One of his trainer bikes. And then I start getting acquainted with that. And so then starting to get all the little pieces, the shoes, the different things. And James says, he mentioned something about 100 miles. And he's like, yeah, people do that all the time. And I'm like, I want to do that. And so I'm like, what is it going to take? You know, like, I know you can't just jump into it because, you know, 30 miles hurts right now. What is it going to take? And James was like, okay, well, yeah, if you're serious about it, like, we'll start doing it. So every weekend we started upping it. And so we'd ride through the week, and then every weekend we started. So I was riding like 3 times a week around this time. And so we're upping it. So it's like 35 miles, 45, 55, 65, 85. And then finally came the 100-mile day. One of the hardest things I've ever done. It was really hot. It was in July.
Was it a race or like a ride that somebody put on, or was it?
It was literally just us 3 riding all this time because COVID was really high right at this time, and groups were like frowned upon, I was told.
Yeah.
And so I'm like,
because you could really catch COVID while everybody,
you know, exactly. That's what you know. And so it was us 3 doing all these rides, and man, I think that made me really strong because it's just like you're not super reliant on the group.
Yeah.
Although group skills are very, very important. But they taught me a lot themselves because they had both been riding for years. And yeah, then we finally did that 100-mile ride. And James, being the beautiful soul that he is, James Gann, shout out to James Gann. He is the most generous man in the world. And that bike he let me borrow, we finish, and he comes out. There's a video out there of it. And he comes out after we finish, and he gives me these stickers. And it has my name on it and my flag, the Venezuelan flag. And he's like, you need to put that on the bike. And I'm like, why? I can't put that on the bike. He was like, well, it's your bike now. He was like, you did 100 miles. I see you're serious with it. I have a ton of bikes. Like, I'm gifting you this bike.
That's awesome. Was it a pretty nice bike?
Yeah.
Dude.
It was my first race bike. Like, it was a bike that I, started racing with. It was a Jameis from like 2016, but it had red components, which are SRAM red components, is like the highest end. Like, it was such an incredible bike, and I was extremely grateful and lucky, just absolutely blessed with the possibility. But then when we started riding in groups, started learning more and more, and all I wanted to do was be better. And I knew that couldn't just happen physically, that I read around that to be like really good at this, you got to be good at your bike handling. You got to be good in groups. You got to be strong as well, but you have to know the ins and outs. And so then I started, pretty much when we started riding in groups, I started annoying everybody. So I'd come up, ask questions. I'd meet everyone, because some people, it's funny, in these little groups, you'll be next to somebody for 30 minutes to an hour. And some people, they don't like talking to people all that much. And so you won't say a word to each other.
Yeah.
It's the funniest thing. But the way that I was, and me loving people, hungry for that information and that knowledge, I would introduce myself immediately and then start asking little questions. How long have you been riding? Then the more I started riding in groups, started getting into harder groups. And then I'd get dropped from these rides. But then the next week or the next day, I'm holding on a little longer. Then I'm learning about racing. Who's the racers? Why, what is it all about racing? So then 2021 came, and that was my first year of racing. My first race was at Gambler, this race that they used to host in Bixby, downtown Bixby. And I got third, and I was like, oh man, I am hooked. I am deeply hooked, not only into riding, but into racing, because that's the thing I want to remind everybody about riding bikes. You can become really obsessed and never have to race. Like, it's so fun just to group ride or just to go out and ride by yourself. You don't have to ever race. Like, nobody should ever feel obligated to race. It is very fun to race, but it is also very risky. And so you're running already some risk riding in groups. So it's like, if that's all you want to do that. Like, all that matters to me is that you're riding a bike. Like, That's where the joy is, But 2021 came. I started trying out racing, fell in love, and I was like, man, I want to be really good at this. And so then Tulsa Tough. And
in 2021, you started March of 2020.
Yep.
And then Tulsa Tough you did your first race, what month in 2021?
That was May
of 2021. Yeah. So right about a year.
Yeah.
And then Tulsa Tough is June of 2021. And then so.
Yeah. And so then I hadn't won.
One thing I didn't ask you, how long did it take you to do your first 100-mile race or ride?
March to July.
No. How long time-wise?
Oh, it was like a 15 mile an hour pace. It took us 7 hours.
Dude.
7 hours and 30 minutes. My booty was like, dude, why are we still on the seat?
Dude, okay. So before we get into this next phase of your cycling career, because I want to give people some perspective. So I went ahead and I like kind of put it off. I was like, the race is not until June. And at this point it was like May.
Yeah.
And I kept calling it a race. Now I know it's a ride. Like, there's so many different things.
It is.
Like,
it's interesting.
Guys, if you guys ever want to get into cycling, just be ready, because there's a lot of stuff.
It's
like
crazy.
That. So I, get the butt pad, get the stuff, and then I'm riding like 20 miles a week, and I feel like I'm training for this.
Yeah.
And then I go in back to Fat Tire, and I'm like, hey, can you guys check my bike, make sure that it's good for this 100-mile bike race? And then I start looking around, and I'm like, is there such thing as like trading in your bike like a car? And they're like, yeah, there is. And at this time I'm hearing like, you can get so much for your bike because there's so much, there's not enough inventory.
Oh,
Bro,
yeah.
This $1,500 bike, they gave me $400, and I ended up buying a $2,500 bike. But I was just like, dude, these people are not salespeople. And I'm like, please sell me. I want to buy this, but I need an excuse. And I was like, give me some comparison. Like, what is this bike that I have compared to a car? And he's like, you're currently driving like a Mustang. Yeah. He's like, this new bike, it's like a Ferrari.
Yeah.
And I was like, there it is. I'm sold.
That's what's funny about, a little tidbit, that's what's funny about bicycle like shop people is the sales guys, they don't sell you on anything. They just like are pretty, at least the ones I've met, they're pretty straightforward. And with that straightforwardness, they're selling you. You're like, well, I'd be silly to not,
We're at the same bike shop now, Bicycles of Tulsa.
Yeah.
And dude, the bike that I wanted, Scott wouldn't sell it to me because he's like, this is not your size.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, it feels fine. But now I so much appreciate it for him. I go do this. I had never done a group ride.
Yeah.
I go do this 100-mile bike race by myself, bro. Myself. Took me 6 hours and 57 minutes to do it.
Wow. Hey, your first one?
Dude, That's never fantastic. Wanted to ride a bike ever again. But I was like, I'm already like 5K in. Yeah. Altogether.
Yeah.
So I was just like, if I want any ROI on this, return on investment, like I need to probably buy more stuff. Yeah. I mean, shoot, I'm on my third bike now. But so the reason why is, so I go do all these other rides, and none of them just keep getting better, but I keep learning. Ariel, I met her at my first group ride, and same thing. She was super friendly, got to meet her, didn't realize how good she was.
Oh yeah.
Fast forward into this, I put my bike away. I go back into CrossFit. Come January of this year, I'm doing, I was about to go do a marathon in Oklahoma City in April or March or whatever. I think it was March. And I go and run 5 miles. I hadn't ran since the Tulsa run, which was a year from this weekend, which I just signed up for, which a lot of people think it's crazy for because of what happened. I go and run 5 miles, go do a CrossFit workout. I was doing box jumps. I ruptured my Achilles.
Oh,
dude, it's horrible.
Oh my land.
And all I could think about was like, I'm just gonna get fat. Like, what am I gonna do without fitness? And dude, it was hard mentally.
Yeah,
like I was just like, oh my gosh, like what the heck is gonna happen? Fast forward, you know Jeff Fox? He's a cycling guy. He's with the Wheelmen. He did my surgery, and I start getting to PT a couple months in. They put me on a bike, and I'm like, maybe I can just actually ride my bike because it's gonna be a while before I can go back to CrossFit.
Exactly.
So that's when I was just like, I can go and buy a new bike.
Yeah.
Dude, for some perspective, riding my first 100 miles last year, June of 2022, to doing, I told you I did the Hotter Than Hell. Mm-hmm. That was my first 100 miles since the surgery. Yeah. Dude, sub 4, 3 hours and 57 minutes. But riding in a group makes a huge difference, makes it so much easier.
Yeah.
So much easier. Yeah. And also I mean, it's just so different. So I want to share that so people can get a perspective of like just the improvement I had over a year. Yeah. But I want to talk about, you do Tulsa Tough, and then is that your first race that you did in Bixby? Was that like a Cat 5 race? Yeah. So just in like a minute, like dumb it down to me, telling me like you're now a category 1. So tell me what that means. Like if I want to get started with just something that I'm wanting to do. Yeah. Talk to me a little about that for people that don't know anything about cycling. Yeah, so there's a point system, and there's a category system, and then there's a point system that comes from your placing in races, and how many points you can get in these races depends on how many people are in said race. So you start at a category 5, which is a beginner, then you go to a category 4, which a category 5 is still, like, I thought I was doing races this entire time. I was just doing rides. That does have nothing to do with points. Yeah. So you have to go and get into something that's actually considered a race. Exactly. And you start as a Cat 5. How hard would you say it's to go from a Cat 5 to a Cat 1? So the way that to go from a Cat 5 to Cat 1 is tough. I mean, it's hard. Yes, it's very difficult. Yes. What's the average time that it takes somebody? The average time. From what I've heard, it usually takes about somebody that does it quickly is about average, it's 5 to 8 years. And that's average. Yeah. So you were telling me, so you start in a Cat 5 and you start getting points. And what are those points that you have to get? So it starts lower. So, from a Cat 5 to a Cat 4 is actually voluntary. Your mandatory is if you get 10 points. And so let's say I'm in a race that has 10 people in it and I'm one of the 10. Let's say it's a Cat 5 race. If I get first place, I'll get 3 points from that, I believe, or 4 points, something like that. And so, of course, the more people that are in a race, the more ability you have to get points. So the larger the points that you can get in first place, second place, third place grow, the more people are in that said race. So then acquiring this new category gets harder as you go up. So for an example, from a Cat 5 to Cat 4, you're even able to do a voluntary upgrade. You don't even have to have any points. From a Cat 4 to a Cat 3 is, I think, 25 points. To put it in, and then it grows, and to put it into perspective, from a Cat 2 to a Cat 1 is
40 points that you have to get.
And of course, if people aren't following, the races get harder and harder.
So much harder. So that's the beauty of this sport, is what they say is from category 5 to category 3, you can win solely on fitness. You don't have to have any technique. You don't have
category
to have
what to what?
Category 5 to 3. You don't really, it's not about not having any, but you minimally, the weight is mostly on fitness. So if you're strong on the bike, you can really out-strengthen anybody else in the race most times. That's Cat 5 to Cat 3. Cat 3 to Cat 1, everyone is just as strong as you, if not stronger. So now you really have to learn positioning, energy conservation, fueling. You have to really start knowing and learning the ins and outs if you want to even place in races when it comes to Cat 3 to then 1. So it gets so much harder. More people with experience. There's people that have been Cat 3, Cat 2s for, 5, 10 years. So they got it in and out. They know, they know the little things. They know where to not waste energy. They know all these little things. Those are the things you have to start learning to then put yourself in a situation to win races or place. So to put it into perspective, I won most races from as a Cat 5. I won most races as a Cat 4. Started dwindling, so then some races as a Cat 3. I won no races as a Cat 2. I only placed well.
So it takes an average person 5 to 8 years. Most people listening right now, they say, I want to get into cycling. They got me bumped up. I want to do this. It's going to take them 5 to 8 years. How long did it take you?
So I got my Cat 1, it was so 2021 to 2023. So it took me 2.5 years.
2.5 years.
But that's where the obsession comes.
Yeah.
So one of my dreams growing up, I've always loved sports, playing them, but also watching them. One of my dreams that has been held high in my mind and in my heart since I was a little kid was to become a professional in a sport.
And if you're a Cat 1, you're a professional.
I'm all that's left for me to be a professional is to sign a contract with a professional team.
Which this is another misconception that most people do. Because, dude, I've had literally people, whenever I posted that I did that Hot in Hell stuff, people are like, so can you ride in the tour now? And stuff. Yeah. But here's the thing is people don't even realize that you would probably never do that as a full-time job, especially here in the States.
Yeah, exactly.
Something that I never even realized is that even if you're part of the tour of a team, there's only one guy that's the starter. Yeah. And everybody else,
the star, if you will. Everybody else is working for that person.
And you're not making hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, if you're not winning. Yeah. Only one person in that whole entire thing. Yeah. So what is that going to take for you? Is that something you're wanting to do?
Yeah. Yeah, because I have now seen that so it was when I won. So my first big race that I won was at Cat 5 2021 Crybaby Hill. I won on a bike throw by a millimeter. And
your first Cat 1?
Cat 5
Cat
race.
5, Cat 5.
Yeah. And that was Crybaby Hill in 2021. And that's when I was like, okay, I set myself a goal. If I don't get to Cat 1 or I don't see the possibility of me becoming a pro by 30, then we take the foot off the gas a little bit and I just ride for fun, race for fun for the rest of whatever. But I know I'm going to do this for a long, long time. But that's my deadline.
So you were giving yourself 5 years, 4 years?
Yeah. Yeah. That was my deadline. Well, I'm a Cat 1. I just joined a domestic elite team, which is semi-professional. So the possibility is very near in there, and I have friends now in the pro peloton. I race within the pro peloton. I race against these guys that are getting paid to do this, but I've also met a lot of people that are in the pro peloton that still keep a full-time job. because you can. Why not? You know, if you can balance it, why not? And now I've seen my time management, I can balance it. But ever since I won that race, I said, okay, I'm going full gas, full everything, completely committed in every way. And so ever since then, that's how it's been. And so I got a coach. My training has only ramped up on every goal that I have set every now racing year. So now I've raced since 2021. I've had 3 seasons, if you will. Last year was my first like full racing calendar season, to where I raced from February to September. Although I have a race here in November, that's a little more for fun and in Edmond, but that'll be my last.
Oh, November 5th?
Yeah.
So I'm not doing the race, but I'm doing the ride, the 66.
Nice. Yeah.
So, dude, I could literally talk to you forever, and I want to have you back on because this is what I'm asking. I want to kind of get on that path. Yeah. And I'm gonna need your help.
Oh yeah.
I want you to be like my mentor throughout the whole thing. Happy. And I'm gonna give you whatever credit where credit's due. And I want to do this again. And I want to just kind of look back to the process. Yeah. Because I'm so inspired by you, bro. I want to go ride right now. Yeah. Yeah. And dude, and I should have said this at the beginning. How I met Elias. I was in a group ride still right now where I would consider myself a lot better than I was when I started. Fall off this freaking ride, meaning like I just got left behind. And this dude comes back for me and takes me back to the group. Yeah. Which not only does that show that you're super strong, but shows how nice you are. Like who does that? Like I wouldn't even do that. Yeah. Like I'm out there for myself. Yeah. I'm trying to hang on. Yeah. It's a hard ride. But from that to like even this weekend, like I felt good throughout the entire 100 miles, and then we're up this hill. Of course, we have to have a hill at the very end. That's how it always happens. And I'm just like, dude, oh my God, I'm falling behind a little bit, and you're just like, dude, you can do this. Go, and I'm like, that's what you need. So, dude, I so appreciate you for that. Of course. Last 2 things, really quick. Yeah. What is the best advice that you've ever received? For bikes or just in general? For anything in general. Because you've had dude, you came from Venezuela, which I'd say that I came from like a very poverty upbringing in Mexico, for it being like a country that's just right down there, right close to us. Yeah. I don't know what your situation was and why you guys moved here, but we know the situation in Venezuela right now. Yeah. To where, I mean, that right there is already overcoming so many obstacles to adapting to the culture here, to becoming a bodybuilder. I mean, just anything, bro. Like, what's the best advice that has made you who you are? So 2 things, two sayings by my mom. And the first one is cada uno es dueño de su propio destino, which means every single person is the owner of their own destiny. And the second one is el dueño de la información es el dueño de la situación. The owner of the information is the owner of the situation. So that told me 2 things. I'm in control of what I can make happen in my life. And so I'm going to use every action in my power to do so, to get what I want. And that, how can I be the owner of a situation? I need to know more information. I need to learn and be teachable, and I need to be a sponge in any way that I can. Dude, that's literally why I have this podcast, and I learned so much from you. I'm so freaking pumped. The last thing I want to do, where can people find you? Yeah, people can find me on my social media is the Elias Zamora, Instagram, Facebook too. You want to be friends? We can be friends. I don't mind. Let's do it. And hey, Nate, would you mind grabbing my phone real quick? I want to share this last thing with people really quick, and I should have had this before. But so if you guys thought that this dude riding 2,500 miles this last, what was it, 2 weeks? No, or 5 weeks. 5 weeks. 5 weeks. I should have had this, but you're good. Let me see this real quick. This dude, you rode your first 9 miles in March of 2020. Yeah. Nate, how many miles do you think this dude has done in the bike since March of 2020? Just give me a guess. Give me a number.
20,000 miles.
Close, but not so close. You're almost at 30,000. And if you're like me, you're pissed. You're at 29,687. You're like right there. And is there more? There's probably more miles that are not on
So
here.
a lot of that is hidden, yeah. So what do
Over
you
30,000 miles.
what does it show you that I've done this year?
This year, it shows that you have done almost 8,000, 7,933.
So I have a lot of stuff hidden because I do when I do my structured workouts, during season I have those hidden because just for competitive advantage, if you will, because my coach has a specific thing, and that's what's public. Last year, I rode 11,000 miles in a year. I just crossed 12,000 miles this year.
Oh, my gosh.
So that's
You're putting more miles in their bike than people are putting in their cars.
Yeah.
Bro, thank you so much for coming, bro. I appreciate you so much.
Hey, I appreciate you, brother.